Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video lesson, I've gone through my stash of that box that I have that I put all the leftover bits and bobs, grabbed some stuff, and I want to create a piece, but I want to experiment a little bit with using the DecoArt Designer Finishes. This is the rusted metal kit, and I'm going to give that a try. I'm not a fan of rusted metal, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to leave it because I do have a pot that's pretty rusted. I love the pot, so I wonder if I can play on that to get some colors. So I'm going to make a artist trading card, or just a small piece of art. It doesn't have to be for a trading card. And the pieces I pulled out a key, this piece of black and white string, this piece of textbook paper that was sent to me from my friend Cheryl, and I'm going to be using a stencil. I'm not going to be using this stencil. I'm going to be using the accent pieces. This is the DecoArt Personally Yours Between the Line stencils, and what they are, they're layering stencils. I'm going to be using this piece. These are perfect for artist trading cards. But basically you can stencil letters with patterns inside, which is really neat. Okay, so that takes care of that. I've got an old key. No idea what it's for. Hopefully it's nothing important. So the Designer Finishes colors, you can buy these independently or use basically whatever colors you want. I mean, I could use transparent red iron oxide instead of Georgia clay, but I'll call out the paint colors. So it's a DecoArt Americana, Georgia clay, Asphaltum. Okay, so you're talking a reddish color, and then you're talking a brown. So you can always use burnt umber. The DecoArt Extreme Sheen 10. I love this. And then the Texture Sand Medium. Now, I find these bottles very hard to squeeze, so I prefer them in the actual little containers. The DecoArt Media and the Traditions containers. That way I can just unscrew the cap. Now, for the colors, for the actual paper, I'm going to use burnt sienna, transparent red iron oxide, burnt umber, and titanium white from the DecoArt Media Fluid acrylic lines. Okay, so I'm using these because they're more transparent, because I want the text color to show through. I'm not sure if I'm going to need burnt sienna, but I'm going to keep it out just in case. So because there's going to be tons of waiting time, the first thing I want to do... Oh, and the little card is just a piece of packaging. That's all it is. And I put a layer of the DecoArt Media Gesso on top of this and let it dry because it was raw cardboard. Let it dry, then I put on another layer. Okay, so that was that. First thing I'm going to do, I want to stain this string because the black and white isn't going to fit with the look. And I'm going to... Well, you know what? Let me try with the burnt umber. I'm not sure if this is going to work. Just a little bit. I just want to stain it. Now, you could use distress inks and all that stuff, but the thing is, it's not permanent. I want something permanent. And let me just mix that up. And get that in there. And this is going to take a bit to dry. So I've got the... Oh, not enough. I've got the... I'm going to use transparent red iron oxide. I want to get a bit more red in there. I've got the air conditioner on because it's going to be like 40 today. And so I'm going to hang this little piece of string up. Ooh, look at that. I'm going to hang the little piece of string up in front of the air conditioner to dry faster. Normally I wouldn't do that because of Chaos, but Chaos is up in heaven playing with, or Rainbow Bridge playing with Harley. And so I can do all this stuff. I still find it weird that I can be in here and play with my art supplies and she doesn't jump on the table. That was something that even now is hard to kind of get past. Okay, so now we've got this really dark... Ooh. Oh yeah, there's a piece that I'm going to work on how to make flowers from string art. That's neat. Oh, I like that. All right, I'm going to leave that here. And let me just get this part started because there is still drying time with this. This one takes a little bit longer. So we're going to prepare the piece here. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to base coat it with the Extreme Sheen. Brush. Now I would normally cut, like do a large piece, then just cut it. But because there's going to be sand texture involved, that would damage my scissors. And I've already buggered up my good scissors, so I'm not going to do that. The other one, let me just use up the leftovers. So the idea with the technique I'm going to be using is layering paints, and boy, I did put a lot out there, didn't I? Layering paints and to create a rusted metal look. Oh, now look at this one. This is the tin over a blue background. This is where the really neat experiments happen, is when you do stuff for the first time. And there we go. All right. Let me just feather this out a little bit more. And I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to put another layer of paint on that off camera. And once that's dry, then I'm going to take the Georgia clay with the sand medium and scrape some of that on, and then come over after that with a very thin layer of asphaltum, and that will kind of lay on top of everything, but it's going to neutralize a lot of the Georgia clay, and it's going to create that really pretty look, and then leave some of this showing through. All right, so gonna let that dry, put on another layer and let that dry, and when we come back, we'll get onto the texture sand part. Now we're gonna mix the Americana Georgia clay and the texture sand medium 1:1. And this is hard measuring at 1:1 because it's a medium. Look about right. And then mix that up. I could even see this being with the crackle paste instead. And this is too much. Actually, let me get that other card so I can do a demo. So I'm just going to that on there, and what I want to do is I want to focus on the corners and the edges, because that's typically where rust would happen, and you'll never get the same technique or the same effect. Let me try that again. You'll never replicate the effect, like the pattern, because it's so random. That. You don't want to cover everything. When I just realized, so it's a good thing I did a sample, because the paper that I'm going to put on top is going to cover most of the metal. So let me see if I create a let me just do a little bit on this side. So this would have been better as a bigger piece of art, but I just wanted to see what I could do with it. Oh, look! I don't know if you can see this. I see a horse's head. So there's the horse, there's one eye, there's the other eye, and his ears, let's say, are dark brown, and here's his mane. That's so cool. All right, so we have that left over. Okay, let me see what it looks like on top of Crackle. Right now, all I'm doing, I'm just using up the leftover product. because this I can use this to experiment later on. All right, so that's that. Okie dokie, so now I have to let that dry. Now this takes a little bit longer to dry because of the texture sand medium. I would discourage you from using your heat gun on that because you want to let it dry all the way through because it is a little bit thicker. If you use a heat gun or a hair blower on this, the top part will dry where the texture sand is. The top part will dry, but the underneath might not. So when we go to put on the thinned asphaltum, we don't want the paint, this effect, we don't want that pulling away from the card. So I would say right now, I'm thinking maybe it'll take maybe about 10 minutes to dry. So when we come back, we'll thin the asphaltum, put that on, and I'm gonna work on tinting the paper, this paper, with a reddish brown, and we'll start putting everything together. So now for this part here, I could use gesso to kind of shove this stuff back, but I'm going to just use titanium white. And, oh, sugar. Okay. Guess I'll have to use paper towel. I wanted my little kitchen cloth. And I'm rubbing this in the paper, and I'm doing this so I can get some random looks. I'm basically covering a lot of the text. Probably not going to need that part. That's why I love using this paint, because it's translucent. It's still semi-opaque, I would call it. But some areas I want a little bit thicker, some areas I want a little bit thinner. I like the broken pieces there. You can do this with a paintbrush, but you'll have to really make sure that it's random. Leave some areas of paper blank. Okay, takes care of that. And that will take nothing to dry. So now the next step from here is I want to stencil. Oh, compressor just came on with the air conditioner. I want to put on some transparent red iron oxide. Now, I have to admit, I don't like stenciling with the fluid acrylics because I always put on way too much. And then it goes under the stencil. I'm going to load up the brush, wipe off as much as I can, and just go round and round. What I would have liked even better was this in reverse, where I could stencil the lines. Now, I'm going to reach out to DecoArt to see, because there's some, like, their stencils are beautiful. There's sometimes I want it in reverse. If I take this and put it through my scan and cut to create a reverse stencil, I have to find out if that's allowed, because there's copyright involved there. Because there's another project I want to do with letters, and I'm thinking I might be able to do it with the Personally Yours stencils. Not sure, but basically is to do a reverse mask with the letters. Oops, I shifted. Okay, so I'm thinking I want this a little bit darker. I'm not sure exactly what part I'm going to be tearing. I'm not sure which part I'm going to be tearing. Put that in the water. Put that aside. Clean that up right away. And if you've got an art journal going, clean your stencils on the art journal pages, because then it really makes for some interesting effects. that. So let me think. That's not quite dry yet, so I'm thinking I'm going to tear this paper right here. I think I'm going to use this one. I don't want to cover that face, the horse's head. Yeah, like that. Okay, that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to do that. And then I'll wrap the string and then put the key. All right, so I'm going to leave this to dry for a few more minutes. I'm going to leave that as a demo because I love that horse's head. I'll leave that to dry for a few more minutes, then we'll apply the thin layer of asphaltum. I went and had a coffee because it took a little bit longer to dry than I expected. So it was about 35 minutes for drying. Oh, Mia's coming for a visit. Okay, so Mr. Horsey, I'm going to put over here. All right, so now I'm going to tone everything down with asphaltum. Now, if I were to do this without knowing about the kits, I probably would be using the fluid acrylics because they are more transparent. So I'm going to take the American asphaltum, and oh, I'm running out of water in there. And 4:1, basically just until it's thin. And I can use the same brush. Over everything. What you want is you want the paint to be transparent. So the colors will show through. You don't need a lot. The other thing which would have worked really well is the misters, the Decor Media, the misters, and you mix the blue, the red, and the yellow together to make a brown, and then you can use those on top of here as well, because those are perfect. I want to be trying that when I get when I have them come in. Michael's is open now, but they didn't have a lot. There was a lot of stuff that they were missing. Okay, so I'm going to get some just turning just to get some variation in there. There we go. That's really nice. I like that. Now with this too, can let it dry naturally. You can use a heat gun to speed up the drying time. I'm going to do that. At the same time, try not to move. It's okay to get them away from the sides, but I want to make sure that I get some of that variation in here, because the card is bent over a little bit. And the other thing you can do too is you can do multiple layers. Okay, so let me just put that one here. Now let's do this one. You know what? That'd be too red. Let me do the transparent red iron oxide and a little bit of burnt umber. No, burnt sienna. Nope, burnt umber. Sorry. Now I'll do this card like that, just so we can see the differences. Oh, that's not watery enough. Oh, the power just flickered when the air conditioner came on. And this, as soon as I put it on, I knew that it wasn't enough water. You can rescue it by actually, with a full bottle of water, just spray the card. And that'll mix it in. That's going to be interesting. I want to make sure I focus that along the edges. See, this one's not bent. The card, this one's bent a bit more. Okay, so let me put that over here now. And let me just blot that edge just a little bit. Now this technique for using these products isn't really meant to be for paper. I have to pick up some rust cleaner for the plate before I do that, because it's naturally rusted, but I want to prepare it first. Especially when you're doing really nice stuff, you want to make sure that you've got the prep work done properly. All right, so now I'm just going to blot up the excess. Where's that stencil? I actually don't. You know what? Let me do. So I'm going to bring out something else instead. I've got this amazing bubble wrap. Now this is where I want to do this with the burnt sienna pure. And it's going to take a dry brush and just skimming the top, making sure I don't have a perfect pattern. This is just going to go underneath before we put the paper on. Did it? Not quite. Not quite. Okay. Let's try this. Oh, the part that I'm pressing, the bubbles are all broken. There we go. Got just a little bit of stuff happening there. Let me get rid of this. Dry that. Just to get a little bit of extra texture in there. When stuff is rusting, it's not a perfect, even pattern. So now I'm going to collage that, then put another wash and oopsie, sorry. Matte medium. Now this here, make sure you've got a good amount on, because you've got this texture sand paste on there. You want to make sure that it gets right inside the nooks and crannies. You can even use a gloss medium, but the problem with the gloss medium with this type of style, because it's rusted metal, it may not be appropriate. Same with stuff that you're going to distress and make vintagey looking. A gloss finish sometimes isn't always appropriate. All right, so now while this is going, what I can do, I can come in with, just get more of the transparent red iron oxide with the matte medium. Yeah, I know I contaminated it. I know. So this way I could do everything wet on wet. Kind of deepen up the corners. This transparent red iron oxide, I can't live without this color. I use it so often. And when DecoArt stopped making it for Traditions, I was heartbroken. Here we go. Oops, come on. All right. That. And now the string. The string, I'm thinking of just putting in a bit bigger. But I need to get that wet with media. What could I use? What can I use? I'm just looking at my shelf. Sorry. Yeah, I think I'm just going to use, the liquid glass will be too shiny. So, let's put it right here. Oh, this is going to be a mess on my hands. Oh my. Just dragging and dragging and dragging. Mix it in with the transparent red iron oxide to further tint it. All right. Probably could even just more in the middle to raise it up. Okay. Now, reach up. I want to get the liquid glass because this is what I use as glue. You can turn around as well. If you have alcohol inks, you can turn around and you can stain your metal as well. You know, a different color. That's fine. I'm not going to bother. Just want to show you an example. I like the brass look. And East End Lock and Key, there's a phone number there, so oh, the nozzle's clogged. Sugar. Okay. No problem. No problemo. So this is just, and I could use the gloss gel medium as well for this. That would have worked just fine. This is a centered piece. Very, very simple composition. This will dry completely transparent. Sorry, just cleaning up the edges here. Okay. Actually, you know what I'm thinking? Come on. No, you're completely blocked. And I don't have a pin. Shh. I don't have a pin. We'll swap covers. This is a new one. And I know better. I'm looking at this now, and I think I want to fill in that inner circle with the gloss. This is now going to take about a day to dry. It's going to look like water. Almost like a mosaic. You can choose to do this or not. I'm just experimenting. That's the best part of doing art like this. It's just, what happens if? What would it look like if? And don't be afraid to experiment with stuff that you've got in your house. I'm going to overlap this. Don't be afraid to experiment with stuff you have in your house. You say, well, why don't, okay, will this work with this? Try it. What's the worst that can happen? Just pushing this down. All right. And that one I have to clean. All right. So it's going to take a while to dry. So when we come back, I'll have this all trimmed off and we'll see what this looks like all dried. You know what else might be nice on here? An actual quote right on the key. But I want to leave it the way it is, just see if this looks like rusted metal. While I'm waiting for the other piece to dry, I'm going to take some Decor Art Media Fluid Acrylics, the Quinacridone Burnt Orange, which is really intense. Just a little bit. And this is PR 206, so even though it is a burnt orange, it is more on the red side. And some water. And anytime you use this much water with acrylics, what I would do is put a varnish on top. So I'm putting this over the crackle areas. Let that sit, and now come in with, where's burnt umber? Burnt umber, right in the same mixture. Oops, not that much. That's not going to be too thick. Okay, and I get a paper towel. Just to see what that looks like. The Quinacridone Burnt Orange goes inside the cracks. That's cool. And then using the dark, that is neat. So the technique works just as well mixing with other things. That is cool. Could even knock that down even more with more brown to make that contrast. And what you can do too, when you're working with crackle stuff like this particular technique here, let it sit for about 2 minutes and then come back and wipe it off. That'll give the paint time to get inside all the cracks, and then you can wipe it back. Let me get a heat gun. Let me just dry this for a sec. Speed that up. Just blot up the excess. Yeah, that's right inside. So we'll see what this looks like when it's dry. And this one here, the horsey, not quite dry yet. That's really nice. And I just put a quote on there. I love that. Alrighty, so we'll be back, 30 minutes, an hour when the other piece is dry, and then we'll finish that off. Alright, it's all finished. So just going to go through what I did. So here's the one that looks like a horsey. So I left that one as it is. And this really does look like rusted metal all here. This is the one where I just tried to see what would happen over a card that already had crackle paste on it. It's quite an interesting effect. And then this is the key. So what I did off camera is I also edged use some burnt umber on the edges with a cosmetic sponge, and I add a little quote here, "A time of wonders." But you can see how it looks really wet underneath the key. Not quite dry, but it looks really, really good. Alrighty, so I hope that you enjoyed this, and let me know in the comments below if you've ever tried a rusted metal effect, whether it was on paper or something else, what you used, how you did it, and any other DIY method that you have for creating this look. And until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.